Finding an EM1 Civic that isn't trashed, riced, or priced like a kidney these days is next to impossible. In fact, most of them are all of the above. But as luck would have it, in December of 2022, I met an older gentleman who wanted to sell one he had had since almost new. It had been sitting and needed some work, but it was 100% stock and very fairly priced. So before he could even post it to the wolves on Marketplace, where if he had it would surely be slammed to the pavement and minus a muffler by now, I did the only logical thing and bought it immediately. I had to save this one, and a little Canadian weather wouldn't stop me. Beautiful summer day, and we're out driving in my EM1. This is a 2000 Civic SiR. It's an SiR because I'm in Canada and this is a Canadian car. EM1s are badged as SiRs up here in Canada. I think that this was kind of the peak for build quality for Honda. Starting with 7th gen Civics, and not just Civics, really everything of that era. That's really when Honda started cost cutting, and in my opinion, just the product quality started its gradual decline, which in recent years has become a steep drop off of a cliff. And I'm really excited that I finally own one. I had an EJ8 coupe when I was younger. I got it when I was 19. It was actually the first ever Honda I owned. I loved that, but of course I always wanted the SiR. I always wanted the B16, but I couldn't afford them back then. Honestly, they were a lot cheaper back then than they are now. But I was able to find this one because a guy that I work with, actually, he has a friend that he golfs with who owned this car, and he bought it, I think, since almost new. I think he might have bought it as a lease return when it was like 1 or 2 years old. He wasn't driving it anymore, and it had actually just kind of been sitting parked on the road in front of his house for the last couple of years. So I, of course, immediately bought it. And this was back in December of 2022. And I'll jump you back in time now to, I think this was the day after I bought it, just doing a walk around and showing you the condition that it was in when I bought it. Now taking a look at the outside, snowing and windy and super cold, but even in the snow, look at how good this paint looks. It's got a lot of shine left to it. There's no rust anywhere on the car, no dents, not even any major scratches anywhere. So it's going to clean up really nicely in the spring. It's missing the SiR badge, which is annoying, and those are really hard to find. So a quick tour of the interior. Just taking a look around, we can see this interior is really in really nice condition. Even still had the radio code card and the owner's manual. The only mechanical issues with the car was a stuck open thermostat, a few oil leaks, and a check engine light with PO420. The thermostat was the very first thing I fixed on the car, and I just filmed it as a boring tutorial video because back in early 2023, I was still figuring out what kind of videos I wanted to make and what people would actually watch. As for the oil leaks, oh my god. They just ended up being the VTEC block gasket, distributor O-ring, and the cam end plug, so all very easy fixes. The next thing I tackled was paint correction. As is typical on an old black car, especially one that's been a little neglected, the paint was badly swirled. So I set up my camera and dedicated an afternoon to seeing how good I could get that flamenco black pearl to look. So here's our before shot. As we can see, the paint is pretty swirled. Pretty typical for an old black car like this. The first step obviously is going to be to get her washed. I'm starting this way too late in the day, so we're just going to get started. So an important step to preparing the paint before you polish it or wax it or anything like that is you want to clay it first. And this is going to like suck all the dirt and stuff out of the paint prior to us polishing it. You can use like a spray wax for lubrication when you're doing this, or you can honestly just use soap too. Ideally the car would still be kind of wet, but it's drying really fast here because I'm doing this in direct sunlight, which you're not supposed to do. And you don't press hard with this, it's just like really fast back and forth motions. Actually not as bad as I thought it would be. All right, so I just did the whole car, so you can see how this is kind of, especially in that corner there, it's all like black, and that's all the dirt that we pulled out of the paint. Again, this car actually surprisingly wasn't that bad, but the reason we do this is so we get all this out of the paint, so when we go and polish it, we're not just grinding all that back into the paint. So the first step is the cutting process, and for that you want to use like a microfiber cutting pad, and then Meguiar's 105 small little spiral. So this step is intended to take out the deep scratches. It'll take out like the swirls and stuff, and it'll just leave it a little bit hazed, and then we'll polish it all back out to a mirror glass finish after that. So here's how the panel looks already just after one pass. And if we go up here and compare it to where we've not done yet on the hood, quite a difference. If you're like a professional, you would like tape this stuff off, you know, so you didn't get all the residue and all the cracks and everything, but I'm a YouTuber, so not gonna do that. Yeah, I think those scratches came out. Oh yeah, they gone. Oh man, I'm getting excited. This car's gonna look good. That's such a difference. Kidding me? This just fell off. Well, ignoring my newly missing Civic badge, no idea why that would have just fallen off like that. I was planning on fixing my missing SiR badge today. Well, these SiR badges are pretty hard to come by, and I was not willing to spend hundreds of dollars for one on eBay. There's plenty of these cheap red, ricey looking ones on eBay, but like... So instead I spent about $15 on eBay for this decal. This decal is a reprint, and it looks like it's made to match the decals that would have come on probably a JDM 5th gen Civic hatch SiR. But I'm gonna cut the Civic part out and use just the SiR portion for my new SiR badge. And I think it'll look pretty good on an EM1 Civic because the SiR font matches the VTEC font on the decals exactly. I bought it recently, so I'm fixing it. Like, I got it really cheap, but it had been sitting.
Yeah, it looks shiny now. What year is that?
It's a 2000. Just pretend the Civic badge is still there. I glued it back on later. I polished the headlights that day as well. They came out alright, but later I found out that one of them leaked, so you'll see me replace them later in the video. I was really happy with how the paint came out, but one thing that was still an eyesore was those corroded wheels. So a couple weeks later I had a local company called Alloy Wheel Repair refinish them for me, and they did an outstanding job. It wasn't cheap, but it was 100% worth it. I think window tint is a must on these cars, so shortly after that I had my windows tinted by a place called Street Legal Tinting and Detail, which from now on is where I will take every single future car I own for window tint. I think this footage speaks for itself. After professionally fixing an exhaust rattle, and by that I mean cutting off a rusted loose bolt, I wanted to address my check engine light. P0420 is the cat below efficiency code that by now plagues just about every single OBD2 Honda of this era that is still rocking its original cat. It might be different where you guys live, but where I am, air care was abolished a long time ago. So here I am removing the secondary O2 sensor, and I'm going to show you a trick on how you can make the computer think your cat is running up to spec, therefore extinguishing that annoying check engine light. It's basically just installing the O2 sensor into a little spacer that restricts the amount of emissions that are actually making it to the sensor. It's super easy to do, and it costs about 20 bucks. So what these O2 spacers actually do, you basically put the sensor in them like that, and so it's spacing the sensor a little further away from the cat, and then in addition, you can see that it's narrow opening, so it's restricting the exhaust gases that are making it to the O2 sensor, thus tricking the computer into thinking the car is producing less emissions than it is, and then hopefully not triggering that P0420. And I will link these O2 spacers in the description as well if you want to. I just got this on Amazon. Really easy way to get rid of that annoying check engine light. All right, let's get back under the car. I'm gonna go ahead and thread this back in now. Oh, it's so hard to see. Well, go on, get back up there. Don't you guys just love laying on the cement? So there we go, there's our spacer. Going into the secondary O2 sensor, no more uncheck engine light. Fixed. With no more embarrassing exhaust rattle or irritating check engine light, I was starting to drive the car a lot more, so I needed a way to listen to my tunes. But I wanted to retain the stock CD player, partially for aesthetics, but I also wanted to maintain potential eligibility for collector's plates. So I modded the CD player with a Bluetooth module so I could pair it to my phone and play music through it. Something I was pretty proud of and thought it deserved its own video. However, the YouTube algorithm disagreed. So if you are interested in how I did it, here's a link to that video, otherwise here's the end result. So I'll just start playing a song on my phone. You can hear that's just coming through the phone speaker. But when I turn on the radio, it's going to pair to the Bluetooth module inside. Pretty cool. Here's a difference between Canadian and US vehicles. I'm pretty sure that a leather-wrapped steering wheel from the factory was standard on the US SI models. But in Canada, it was actually not. And if you wanted to get a leather-wrapped steering wheel, which whoever bought this car knew obviously did, you had to order it as a dealer-installed accessory, which meant the dealer had to sew on the leather wrap themselves. And we can tell by whichever technician did this one was like, I took shop in school, not home ec. To fix this, what I've done is I, on Marketplace, found a steering wheel from a 5th gen Honda Prelude. Now, 5th gen Preludes did come with a factory leather wrap. Stitching is way better on it. It's not mint, as we can see if we look up closely, it does have some wear on it, but the price was right on it, and it sure looks a lot better than this abomination, and it just feels a lot better to grip as well. So, what we're gonna do here is swap out these steering wheels. First thing we're gonna do is take the airbag module out. I've already disconnected the battery. Now there are two little plastic covers on the sides of the steering wheel here, one there on that side, and then another one over on this side. That's gonna expose some screws, which are a T30 Torx bit. And then on the bottom here, there's another little access panel, and that's where the harness that you have to disconnect the cable going to the airbag is. So now with those Torx bolts out and that harness on the bottom disconnected, we can actually pull the airbag module out just like this. Steering wheel nut is 19 mil. Now if it wants to be stubborn, here's a trick. This is just a breaker bar. Yeah, still worked. There you go. So you can just grab a breaker bar to give you something to rock it with. Get yourself a little bit more leverage. So there's the two steering wheels side by side. You can see they're the same. I'm gonna have to transfer over those cruise control switches. And there's how everything should be aligned. This green one, that goes to your cruise control switch. This is what's gonna connect to the airbag. I'm actually gonna be a bit of a geek here and torque this to spec. All right, so now it's time to put in the airbag module. I have to say, the steering wheel swap was not only a major aesthetic improvement, but it just made it feel so much better in your hands as well. The other one was just too thick to grip, and I'll stop there.
So, working on the SiR today. Today we're going to be installing some OEM style fog lights. I got one of those kits you can get off eBay. Got some yellow ones, which comes with the harness and even a kind of an OEM style switch. So we're going to be putting that on. Well, we've got the bumper off. I've also got some new headlights. These are just, I bought these off Rock Auto. I want to replace these because I tried polishing them out, but this one's pretty hazed on the inside and it actually leaks water. So we're gonna throw some new headlights on, and I think that's gonna be a pretty fine upgrade. Fog lights being a dealer installed accessory, these cars do already have the harness mostly in place. At the end, that actually connects to the harness that will then go to the fog lights in the bumper. It's just supposed to be right under this cruise control module. And actually I can already see it. It's that little brown guy right down there. Well, Sadie, did you come here to help? Did you come here to help, Sadie? Did you come here to help? Oh, the block heater plug is zip tied to this. So I just drilled a couple of pilot holes there, and now I'm gonna cut the rest out with my Dremel, and you kind of want to just cut all this area out.
You might have noticed This is a different day. It's a week later now. We kind of ended abruptly last week. I had an issue where these were the ones that actually came with these fog lights, and the screw that they came with, I don't know if I don't have the screw lying around here anymore, but it wasn't long enough to go through here and then go through there. On top of that, you can see that I cut out this area. Well, you're not supposed to do that. No. You're supposed to just cut out this area and then drill a hole here where the screw will then go through that part and that part. Well, I got a little overzealous with cutting. I'm gonna blame it on the heat last week. So now if I use this style, it's kind of ugly because you've got this hole here. So I had this other kit that I was actually gonna return because one of the fog lights literally came broken with it. But the other kit had slightly longer screws and it had this grating. I thought I could maybe make it work with this kit, and I had to drill that hole out a little wider, but then I was able to get it to work with these slightly longer screws. And this kit has the grating, which will cover the area I wasn't supposed to cut. And I actually think that the grating looks better anyways. Unfortunately, I can't return that original kit I bought now, but on the bright side, my bumper now has functional air intakes, helping to chill the washer fluid reservoir, keeping that fluid cool for optimal performance. So the harness that comes with the kit, this green one will go to the switch, and then there's these various brown connectors. There's 3 of them. So for this end of the connector, there's actually a plug for it, which will be taped up behind the fuse box. See that? Brown connector right there with the blue and red wire. So once we've got that released from the tape, it's gonna plug into this one. Doesn't really click in very well, but we'll just assume that's due to the poor quality of this kit. Now when it comes to these 2 brown connectors, we're gonna put those there and there. So that's just the 2 right to the left of the fuse puller. Just like that one, these don't wanna click in. Just the general build quality of these kits is just absolute trash. Oh. Bro, these were $79 fog lights that shipped straight from China. What were you expecting? How hard is it to make a connector that fit? Just really gotta force them in, I guess. Wow. Okay, so then there's a little ground that you gotta hook up, and I think probably the place to ground it is gonna be that bolt right there. So there it is. And then I think I'm just gonna probably zip tie that like that. You know what though? I wanna plug this into my switch and see if they work before I do that. Curious if this switch is illuminated too. I hope it is. Oh, it does backlight, and it's amber too. Okay, let's go look. Let's go look. Oh, yep, I can see it on the wall. We are operational. Oh. Well, that one's not on. Oh no. Okay, so I am gonna say we might have a bad connection over here. So yeah, I barely touched it and I was able to pull that ground right out. So if I can just get that in there, and I'll tuck these wires up there better. Do we got our other side? Yes. Okay, so it was just that connection, so that is a good thing. So I'm gonna tape that up, tie that up. Is this one honestly fogged on the inside? I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but there's it's literally fogged on the inside. Hopefully that'll go away. Okay, let me shut it off. Let's tape that up, tie that up. So there we go. Both sides working. I really just gotta tidy the wiring up under the dash now, and then, yeah, we can call the fog lights done. And the headlight. Fresh headlights that aren't hazed just makes such a difference on the car. So I have no idea where they're actually intending you to screw that in, but I just ran a zip tie through it and tied it up there, and then for the little fuse attachment, and zip tied it up there. So that should all be tight and out of the way. Oh, gotta do something with this still too. Let me get under there. I think it'll be better actually if I run this behind here. Yeah. And we can tuck that through like that. And of course the switch is going to go in the blank there. Pop that out. Get our switch in. Fits about as well as anything else does in this kit. Okay, so like the rest of the kit, this factory switch barely fits. You can literally just pull it out of the dash. Doesn't fall in at least, so I can turn it on and off. And the indicator light doesn't seem to work either. What do you think of the fog lights, Sadie? So I think that'll probably do it for this video. Like I said, I've already got this car to a point that I'm pretty happy with, and I've been driving it a lot this summer, just enjoying it. But definitely have a couple of other little finishing touches to do on it. Definitely still need to clean up the engine bay and paint that valve cover. It needs to be painted real bad. Just some other little odds and ends, but we can do that in a part 2. You let me know if anyone actually wants to watch that. Obviously, I'm going to do that stuff either way. I just don't know if I should bother filming it or not. But what we've already done is brought this car to something that I think is looking pretty good. Definitely gets a lot of looks, and something that I am really enjoying cruising in this summer.